It is so nice to have you here because the border is the story of the century practically. And you're right now in the thick of it ever since you made that amazing offer to President-elect Donald Trump, and you purchased 1,400 acres of land in Texas, and you offered to lease it to the Trump administration when he takes office. And I got to tell you, that was very exciting to see somebody stand up and instead of saying, I'm planting my flag, we're going to be a sanctuary city and we're going to fight you all the way, to see somebody do something that normal people would expect and appreciate. Tell me about it.
Well, it's great to be on with you, and hello to all of your listeners and watchers. We are just super excited to be in this spot. You know, when I ran for this office, I said the General Land Office is literally the tip of the spear for Texas, defending our history, our border, our oil and gas, our economy, everything. And so we've kind of proven that out in our first 2 years of service. But we were approached by members of the Texas Facilities Commission, which is the entity in the states tasked with building the wall. And they said, hey, Dawn, we have this problematic landowner. She's not interested in allowing the right-of-way for the wall. She's not allowing law enforcement on the property. Of course, terrible things are happening on that property. When the bad guys know, they get a free pass. And so they said, could you buy this ranch? Well, we do that all the time. So we made her a fair market offer. She accepted it, and we purchased the ranch within 24 hours of closing on that ranch. We had the right of the way for the wall done, and the wall is near completion. There are a few gates. We're just about 6 weeks out of buying it. There's a few gates that need to be done, but we basically built that mile and a half of wall all together with everybody engaged. And it's just the perfect example of how to get in there and get things done.
It's the American spirit. It's the spirit of lawmakers and government officials that actually want to solve common sense in a common sense way the problems that we face. And so you're just a poster girl, poster woman for for that. You know, the 1,400 acres, that was a big first step. And well, first tell me about the 1,400 acres. I'm assuming that there's barns, some driveways, some houses, um, or sheds or whatever. Tell me just a little bit about it. What did they farm there? Did they ranch sheep or cattle?
Well, I tell you what, the first time I stepped on the property, which was the day after we closed, because of the reports of all the things happening, allegedly a lot of the first rape trees were found on this property. So kind of the first thing I did is we drove around. It's basically row crop, um, farming right now. And then there were a whole lot of, like you said, a whole lot of barns, a whole lot of dilapidated houses on the river, a whole lot of big piles of things that have been burned, looked like plastic, looked like some other things. But we just I actually got in a bulldozer and bulldozed several trees just in honor of the terrible things that have happened to all the children and women on that property. And we wanted to just make a statement and said, symbolically, this stands for the fact that this will not be tolerated on this property anymore. Texas has got it. It's the dawn of a new day. The property is on the river. The river is actually beautiful in that part of the property. We've got some great drone footage to show you that. But we're excited to have the wall up. We're excited. It'll still probably be farmed. We'll see if it fits the Trump administration's needs. And if it does, then to put it in perspective, 1,400 acres is almost twice the size of Central Park. That gives people who aren't used to land very much. But we actually steward 13 million acres all across the state. So I have property pretty much everywhere.
Oh, wow. That's terrific. And so two times Central Park, that really does. It's a great way to give us a better visual in our minds. So I just reposted what a beast you are because I saw you putting up, you were in a heavy machinery putting up one of the panels of the wall. And I just said, can I help? Actually, I don't know how to, I guess I could learn, but now I'm hearing that you're bulldozing rape trees. And what a way to roll up the sleeves, put on those working gloves and get right in the mix. I think that's really terrific. You said there was what, 150 miles or how long was the wall that you put up on this property?
1.5
One
miles
and a
of
half is
wall
what I
on the
meant. I'm
property.
sorry.
No,
One and
it's
a
okay.
half miles. So now let's get down to my list of questions. Have you been talking to the Trump administration directly? Have you been in contact with Tom Homan?
We've had a brief conversation. Of course, he's in process of developing his strategic plan. And I will say all of the Republicans of Texas, we've been unified, standing in the gap left by the Biden administration when they abdicated their constitutional duty to protect our border. So all of us have been working together, all our branches of government, to do everything we can to get these violent criminals off of our soil that have been hurting our sons and daughters. But yes, we're in discussion. So basically, our message to the Trump administration is we're here to be a good partner. You all tell us what you need. If there's any way we can help, we will. We are unified. We are together. We are excited about getting these violent criminals off of our soil. And I think the last election is a good referendum on that. The county that this ranch is located in, the 1,400 acres, has been voting Democrat for over 150 years. For the first time ever, it flipped red and voted for a Republican. And so I think what people want to see is their local, state, and national officials all working together for the safety and prosperity of their children and their communities. And that's exactly what we're going to do.
It's a statement about federalism, that we are a federation of sovereign states, and that the more the federal government, the national government, attempts to take, very successfully so, power from the states and state officials, kind of emasculating that the power of the individual sovereign state that once was very obvious to Americans in the 17 and 1800s. I see a new dawn. We keep saying that. A new dawn. I memorized your name because I said it's a new dawn in Buckingham Palace. That's what I said a few minutes, and I love that song. It's a new dawn. It's a new day for me. One of my favorite songs. But anyway, back to serious questions. It is seemingly, I think, a referendum, in my heart at least, and mind, on federalism, about states' rights and the importance of handing back, as if you have a right to have it to begin with, and hand it back. It's, maybe say it this way, states taking back their sovereign constitutional powers that the federal government has no right to address. Like, when the Biden administration was actually going to bulldoze the fence that was the makeshift fence of razor wire or barbed wire that was put up. Were you involved in that at all?
Not directly, but peripherally. It was just laughable hypocrisy on the part of the Biden administration. On one hand, they're completely abdicating their constitutional duty to protect our border, which is fundamentally what the federal government should do. And then in that absence, our Constitution gives the state the ability to defend itself if the federal government can't get the job done. So Texas, we take full right of that. Having been a sovereign nation in the past, actually the General Land Office is the last remaining governmental entity of the Republic of Texas. So we take that pretty strongly in our office, and it's how we have 13 million acres. And that's another story I'll tell you later if you want to hear it. But we believe strongly in states' rights for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Texas would be right there up with the probably the top states' rights advocate in the states. Now, didn't you just purchase more land for this
I
project?
In the same week, we had quite the banner week, and I'll give you a little history. So since we are the last remaining governmental entity of the Republic of Texas, when we were transitioning from a sovereign nation to a state, we were very different. Everywhere else was pretty much a territory, not a sovereign nation. We had lived under multiple flags. We had to figure out who owned what. So when the General Land Office was founded, we were the keepers of maps, the guardians of Texas history, and the steward to our unowned lands, which today is 13 million acres. And those lands were set aside to fund education. So to put it in perspective, the General Land Office is the largest mineral owner in the state. We gave about $1.4 billion to public education this year alone. So we do a lot with our properties. We're leading the way on things like carbon sequestration leases, oil and gas production, so many things going on. So yes, in about the same week, we purchased this 1,400 acre piece of property. We also purchased a 350,000 40-ish acre property, and we happen to also purchase an underutilized state building that occupies an entire block in downtown Austin. So we do a lot of real estate, again, all with an eye pointed toward funding public education in the state.
When I heard the figure 350,000, I said to my producer, okay, no. Shut up. Go check that number again. Now, is that land contiguous with the 1,400 acres?
No, it is not. It is a long ways away, actually.
Are they both on the Rio Grande?
Yes,
They,
the big ranch has a component of the river on it as well.
all right. And are either of these, I start working out, I actually plan as if I'm actually on the ground doing the job of Tom Homan, and that's just the way my brain thinks. So what I was wondering is, um, are either one of these parcels of land or big ranches near an airport or a military a military air base?
Yes, so the 1,400 acres is on a pretty good highway for that part of the state. It's near an international airport, and it's near an international bridge. We also have several properties in and around the El Paso area that meet that same kind of configuration. The really large ranch we bought is pretty remote. Getting people on and off of there would be a task. So I would doubt that that would be something that the feds would pick. But we feel like they probably need access to major infrastructure, right? You need good water. You're going
Yes.
to have highways. You're going to have airports. You're going to have lots of things. So whenever the Trump administration decides what they need, my guess is you're going to see all of the Texas Republicans standing together saying, how can we help? What can we do? Let's get this job done.
Is there any work being done on the property now in anticipation of this being turned into? By the way, I'm calling it repatriation because, in fact, what we're doing is repatriating. You know, they want to say mass deportation, and technically, you could use a lot of different nomenclature to describe what you're doing, but we're repatriating people back home. We're not sending them to the Gulag Archipelago or, in Siberia. They're just going home where the rest of their family and friends and where they were born and they went to school. It's a much friendlier idea. This is not Assad's Syria that they're going back to. They may, you know. Okay, so tell me a little bit about a little bit more about what the process is right now. Are you working on the land to that you're going to repatriate um, illegal aliens from?
Well, right now we are getting the rest of the wall built. We've got some gates that still have to go in for irrigation and access to the water and things like that. Of course, as soon as the Biden administration identifies pieces of property or what they need, then we'll be in full swing. We've been educating ourselves and talking to a lot of people who make up, for lack of a better word, man camps, emergency structures, because we're obviously not going to have time to build a big brick and mortar structure. So we're trying to understand better what can be put up quickly, what can have the right security, what can have the right access to internet, all those types of things for the processing that they'll need. So we're trying to identify the resources in the various areas that we think might be a good fit for them. So as soon as the feds come to us and they say, hey, Dawn, we need this, then we can have a plan for
You've
them. We
got the
can say, here's
resources and a
here's where your
plan
resources.
because you're going to need
Mm-hmm.
pavilions, you're going to need
Mm-hmm.
kitchens, showers, porta
Mm-hmm.
potties, like,
Mm-hmm.
renting 2,000 porta potties, that kind of a thing. Um, you are urging the U.S. District Court judge to investigate Biden's auctioning of the border wall panels. Wasn't it something like $5 or 5 cents on the dollar or whatever? Another moment of shame and shock. Tell me about that.
Yes. So a while ago, it was the General Land Office. We partnered up with the state of Missouri and, of course, our Attorney General, and we sued the Biden administration, saying that they could only use the dollars allocated for building the wall under Trump for actually building the wall. So this is important now because this summer, unbeknownst to everybody, while, by the way, the Biden administration was waving a flag saying they were building the wall and securing our border, or trying to, they were actually selling individual sections of it. I've seen estimates that it was more than a half a mile a day transported out of the areas that they're building the wall. Of course, when Trump left office and Biden came in, the first thing they did was stop all wall construction, and they sold all of that material on auctions as well. So various people have gotten pretty good at hawking those auctions, seeing what the Biden administration is up to. Luckily, everybody got the word. We were able to be a part of a motion to enforce with the Attorney General, again, in the state of Missouri, to say this is an improper use of funds. We think we've got a good court case. We're very excited that it seems that the courts have stopped the current sale of wall materials in order to investigate. And so that's all we need. We need just a little bit of time, but it just shows how the Biden administration, I mean, each panel, I don't know what they cost, but they have to cost a ton of money. They are big metal panels. And so the fact that they would sell them for pennies on the dollar twice, first when they first came into office, now as they're trying to leave office, it's clear that they're just trying to do everything in their power to make it difficult when Trump enters. So we're
You
going to do
can't
everything
even
in our power.
you can't even imagine somebody so cynical as to think of these things. That's where 'cause sometimes it gets me. Um, who is the person that comes up with this stuff? They should be institutionalized because they're psychopaths.
I think they're driven by hate, just like the FEMA person who told everybody in the wake of the terrible flooding in North Carolina after the hurricane, don't stop at any Trump houses. Don't stop, don't help the people with Trump in front of their house. I can tell you part of the reason Texas is able to mobilize so much is we are on the tail end of the largest disaster recovery this country's ever seen, in a Hurricane Harvey recovery. And so for better or worse, we're pretty familiar with having to take care of mass amounts of people in crisis situations. And for when a storm hits, when you're rescuing somebody, there's nobody in Texas that asks, hey, are you a Republican or a Democrat, when they knock on the door and they save you and your family. We are all in to help everybody we possibly can. And so I just think, again, this hypocrisy, this really, it's, in my mind, it's driven from a point of hate, is completely unacceptable. And I think that it has absolutely infected and been present in the entire Biden administration.
There's a level of vengeance to it. It's a bitter vengeance. It's like, I can't have my way, or I hate Donald Trump, whatever, Trump derangement syndrome, and anybody associated with him, or anybody associated with anything he believes or says or talks in affirmation of. There is a real visceral, deep, emotional anger there, and it is very, very disturbing. I, when the North Carolina and East Tennessee and all of this is going on, I just went online and saw that there were 1,000 not mobile homes, but, like that you would go camping in, big. They could fit families. There were even some small ones, but I searched through them. I literally went through every single one. And for a couple of $100, $150 a month, which you wouldn't need it that bad, you could have sent, and by the way, they're all across a whole bunch of states. There would be volunteers saying, I'm going to go take my truck, load that thing up or hook it up and take it right down there. There were thousands of these readily available. They're all sitting there online. And it's about just doing something that's not cynical. It's about saying, I'm an American. I love my people and I want to help. And now that's exactly what you were doing in the state of Texas. So we're very, very glad about that. I hope you are successful in stopping the auctioning of the border wall, but you only have to wait until January 20th, right? Are you going
Right.
to the inauguration?
I am. I'm
I
super excited about it.
hope to see you there. Uh, Well, is there anything else that I'm missing? Because I've got this big, oh, are you hiring in the state of Texas for, not for me. I don't need a job. I'm saying, are you hiring former ICE agents, or are you beefing up any kind of sheriff's office or law enforcement or anything like that to facilitate and help in the efforts of Tom Homan and the federal government?
Absolutely. Governor Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, the legislature, we have been spending billions of dollars on border security these last several years. A lot of that is beefing up our Department of Public Safety. A lot of it is supporting and funding our Texas Military Department. So we are all in, all the way, all day on law enforcement and any other law that we can do. Stiffening penalties, say for selling deadly fentanyl or for trafficking a child. We are searching for these children. The fact that the Biden administration lost hundreds of thousands of children should get everybody's attention. Those kids are probably not cozy next to a fireplace being well fed right now. They're probably enduring the horrors of being trafficked. And so Texas is all in. We are gonna find these violent criminals who've been hurting our sons and daughters. We are working together to make that happen, and we'll do everything we can to be a good partner with the Trump administration to get the job done.
I know that you obviously don't have Tom Homan's plans, but do you foresee this 1,400 acres as first and foremost essentially single or men who are alone, not part of families, wives and hopefully, well, single men? We always talk about military age. There are people from Iran and Iraq and Syria, and all and African nations, as well as Latin America. Are you foreseeing that this will be pretty much men because it's criminals and gangs, cartels, pretty much first, and so you wouldn't be having children down there and on that property?
Yes, this conversation is really about the priority of getting the violent criminals off of our soil who are hurting our sons and daughters. We know that we have over 150 countries that people are coming from. We know that China is a big one, by the way. And by the way, you don't just walk out of China because you feel like it one day. You have to have the express consent of your government. We know that there are violent gangs that have taken over entire apartment complexes in multiple cities. In fact, I had a doctor friend of mine, because I was a practicing physician, from Kentucky call me, and he said, Dawn, we had this whole home invasion. It was the violent Venezuelan gang. The things those gang members did in the house were unbelievable. The home invasions we're seeing across the country. These are our priorities. These are mostly male, young male age, but we have tons and tons of these criminals completely clogging up our local jails. And so part of this movement is our local officials getting relief from all these criminals that are overcrowding their jails. And they're going to need a place to be processed for a few days, is my understanding, before they're repatriated. I love that term. I'm going to use it from you, so thank you. I think
You're
that's a
welcome.
great one. But, so we have a lot to do. It's going to take a lot of time. My understanding is we've already identified hundreds of thousands of violent criminals who, by the way, have been in the hands of law enforcement multiple times. I mean, imagine if you're one of these parents, the person you love most in the world is brutally murdered. There's a 911 call of over 15 minutes where they are fighting for their life, being beaten and raped to death. And yet and then you hear that the people who did this were in the hands of law enforcement and allowed to walk out the front door multiple times by these sanctuary policies. I would be flabbergasted by that, and I would consider there to be no excuse. That's why we named our initiative the Jocelyn Initiative, in honor of her. Her mom, when she spoke at the press conference, said Jocelyn's voice was taken from me, Jocelyn's voice was taken from her, but now I am her voice. She lives through me and in my advocacy for getting these violent criminals off of our soil. And we are going to stand by these parents. We're going to mourn next to them, and then we're going to do everything to be sure that no other parent has to experience that pain.
Hispanic Americans are just as patriotic and they care just as much about law and order and our Constitution as anybody else. And I think that we saw this in the election with an obvious mandate for repatriation and for closing those borders and making our cities and streets safe again. Okay, this is a little out of your wheelhouse maybe, but I personally advocate that cartels and even gangs, I'm not a lawyer, um, especially foreign gangs, be designated as terrorists organizations. And my thinking behind this is that the civil rights of terror organizations or terrorists in those organizations are not treated the same as you would if you were arresting a guy who robbed the local drugstore. I mean, bad, but he's just a criminal, right? He's an American criminal or whatever. Bad, but he has certain constitutional rights that have and should be um, uplift or affirmed and followed. But I don't think that an invasion of cartels, criminal gangs, foreign gangs is something that they don't have my civil rights. I don't believe that a Venezuelan gang member, just because he put his toes in Texas dirt, that he suddenly magically, like pixie dust comes up and covers him with constitutional rights that American citizens hold. What is your opinion about designating them as terrorist groups?
I think it's a great idea. And in Texas, we've worked very hard to stiffen the penalties significantly for selling deadly fentanyl, for trafficking a child. We want these violent criminals in jail, off